Citizen U presents UFO, where you find out.
We're the two teachers, and today you're going to find out about presidential playoffs.
Andy, we're really talking about the World Series of presidential politics. As we watch our baseball playoffs, or really any playoffs, we're reminded of how we select our president.
I don't know if I'd call it the World Series, Dan. The World Series is where you have the Democrat face off against the Republican in the general election in November. We're really talking about how do those two candidates even get to the World Series? How do you winnow the field of Republicans and Democrats to find your divisional champions?
Well, Andy, often we know that in baseball, for instance, there's a correlation between your fan base and how successful you do in the playoffs. Oftentimes, those big payroll teams get in because they've sold enough tickets. Likewise, those presidential candidates better have drawn that early ticket, picked up some of that campaign finance if they want to play in the big game.
Well, I like to focus on the reason why you essentially have two leagues in Major League Baseball or in the NFL. You typically have two leagues because there's just one trophy. And when you have a winner-takes-all contest like the Super Bowl or like the World Series, it tends to create a system where you only have two conferences. Likewise, in presidential politics, there can only be one president, which means that the rules of the game are set up to have two different parties.
But Andy, as much as we talk about winner-take-all between the two parties, it's not just one game ends it. To become the president, you have got to go through a very elaborate primary system which involves many games to play.
Well, included in those games are, in Major League Baseball, you have the play-in game now, where your wild card teams will play off in a one game to see who can move on. Very similar to front-loading in presidential primaries. The idea that Iowa and New Hampshire don't necessarily determine the winner of the nomination contest, but they certainly determine who the losers are so that you can winnow the field down to fewer candidates.
Andy, we love talking about that play-in game as representative of front-loading in our presidential politics. But let's not forget also the importance of management. That good manager sets the tone in the dugout, and likewise, that handler of any presidential campaign sets the tone. In playoffs, it's all about pitching. Likewise, in presidential politics, who's best pitching their ideas?
And we can complain about the time that it takes for a candidate to campaign through this very lengthy presidential primary process, much longer than any other process in the world. But really, what the goal of a playoff system, no matter whether it's in sports or in presidential politics, is to see who the best candidate is, who the best team is. And there's no better test of that than to see how they do over the long haul, to see what their depth is like. Maybe we don't want a candidate or a team just to get lucky that one instant. So we really put them through a long, arduous process.
Welcome to UFO, where you find out.
We're the two teachers, and today you found out about the playoffs of presidential politics.
No fancy words,
no fancy suits.
Plain talk about issues you need to know.
Just in time.